how faith and trust carry us through life's greatest uncertainties. Welcome, everyone. When life feels uncertain, our greatest strength is not in having all the answers, it is in learning how to lead with hope, anchor ourselves in faith, and build trust both in God and in the practical decisions that shape our future. Every
Mhm.
person eventually faces unexpected seasons, illness, divorce, job loss, financial setbacks, grief, family conflict, aging parents, uncertain futures. But the question is, what does hope really look like when circumstances don't change immediately? And we have,
Yeah.
of course, Mindy McManus leading with faith, and we have Marlene Doss,
Mhm.
our attorney at hand, women, women in the law, and also a faith-centered leadership practitioner.
Mhm.
Guide us through that.
Yeah. Well, I think the best way to talk about it is to share my story. 7 months ago, I lost my husband and then I lost my mom right before Christmas. And when you talk about grief is like something that nobody ever warns you about. It is a pain that you've never felt before. And it is this total sense of loss and emptiness.
Mm.
But then God comes in and he wraps his arms around you and he says, just trust me, I've got you. And that's when we, as believers in God, we have to learn how to surrender. Because if something doesn't go our way, like I can tell you, I didn't want my husband to pass away. I certainly didn't want my mom to pass away, but stuff happens. And I had to look at it as, instead of why me, or I can't believe I'm a widow, or I can't believe this or that, or I'm single or whatever, I saw a sermon that said, when you are in self-pity, which was what I was in, that's actually a form of idolization, and it's idolizing yourself over God. And that hit me like a ton of bricks, and it switched my brain, because I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to put myself above God. Who am I to question?
Yeah.
But who am I to question where he wants me? And so it flipped the switch to say, instead of using the word why, which I think is the worst word in our whole entire language, change it to what. Instead of why am I going through this, what does God want me to learn? Or what are God's next best steps for me? It changes the way in which you think, and it helps you to come out of it. I really don't know how anybody can go through grief the way that I did without the grace of God, because he literally came and lifted me up and moved me every day.
Wow.
It's 7 months. And let me just tell you where God comes in that. Because, in the book of James, he talks about count it all joy when you are going through trials and tribulations, because it is testing your faith and it is growing your faith. And it's almost like your test that you're trying to pass. And I passed the test, you guys. Like, I am now in a season where I'm not crying because of grief. I'm crying because God's blessings are way more than I ever could have asked for.
Yeah.
He brought me this beautiful man that I'm now engaged to 7 months after my
Yes.
husband died. I mean, it's a relationship like I've never had before. It brings me peace and it brings me calm. I have a new job. I'm working with Gen Gap, and it's a great job. It's going to help me get my finances back in order. And I lost 30 pounds. I mean, when God says that he will give you back and he will restore, he restores. So
Yeah.
if you are in a season where things aren't going right, I am proof that God will bring you through. You just have to trust and surrender.
Yeah. And Marlene, you and I work very, very close within the same demographic, within the same region. Mindy, of course, comes to us from Florida, and Marlene and I are in Ontario, good old Ontario. And in the US, one of the things I love is that everybody speaks of their faith and their their beliefs in God a lot more openly than we do here in Canada, just as a culture, right? However, that's not to say that a lot of the leadership is not faith based. In fact, one of the greatest messages and voices that I keep hearing in my head, by now, Marlene is one of them. And she taught me that you cannot pray and worry at the same time.
Yeah.
And that phrase just, it was a game changer when I heard it, and I've kept it with me all this time. Now, as an attorney, most of the time, people don't think, oh, attorney and God, right? And but there is um, saying that says, pray to God, but tie your camel tight, right? Still, faith requires action, and this is where you come in.
Yes, I mean, I can't agree more. I am a woman of faith, and it does steer my business, my practice. How I approach each client that I have the privilege of serving. And I think I've told you this before, Carolina, that I always wanted my profession to be a part of my service as well, which is kind of
Yes.
how I landed here. But yes, I think for each of us, we are responsible, right? If you have a family, you are responsible for being the steward of that ship and doing it faithfully and righteously, and making sure that all the pieces are in order. And part of that does include, using the law to benefit yourself and your family, and having the right things in place to make sure that they are protected and you are protected. And if you have a business, that your business is protected, because our money is not ours, it's his, right? And we're just stewards of it, like I said, and it's our responsibility to make sure that it's used wisely, but also as leaders of our families, whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you're common law, whatever it is, as leaders of our families, and especially if you have children, it's our responsibility to make sure not only that they get through each day, that they're fed, that you're teaching them the principles and whatever, but we have to be future minded, right?
That's right.
And a part of that is planning for when we're not around, because the day will come, as Mindy has experienced. And I don't know how much preparation was there. I hope there was a lot. But the day will come when we're not going to be around, to make sure that all the things that we deal with every day are still taken care of, right? So if you don't plan for it, then you're just setting your family up for a lot of hardship and stress that
Yeah, and it's not like
they
you're speaking it into existence. Okay, we all know our time, here with our loved ones is limited. So we need to make sure when we touch on the word surrender, right? Especially going through seasons of uncertainty when we're leading others, because, like Marlene said, you are a professional, you are a daughter, you are, a parent if you are a spouse, you're a sibling. Like you are, especially for women, right? We're the backbone of our community, from a faith in spirit, and in keeping it together, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's so important that when we say surrender, it's not like the moms and the women who lead this world we're just going to sit back and go, well, I surrendered, right? It's the absolute opposite.
Correct. Mhm.
It is
You
to take,
surrender your will to God's
correct,
will, and
Yeah.
then you
or
choose,
surrender the outcome.
yes, and then you choose to obey God's will.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the piece of it. But I'll be the first one to tell you, I wish I had Marlene. Marlene, I wish I would have contacted you, because my stuff was our stuff was not in order. It wasn't where it needed to be, and I just now paid my taxes because my husband was the one that did all those. So it's there's a lot that you have to deal with after the fact. And being in the amount of grief that I was in, let me just tell you, it didn't get done in a timely manner. I mean, I just got my taxes done and it's like the end of June, almost July. So you're not going to want to do anything after the fact. So the more that you can prep and work with someone like Marlene to get your stuff prepped and ready, the better you will be off, because it has been one of the hardest things to deal with after the fact, is having to deal with all this stuff because it didn't get done in the beginning.
Yeah. And one of the things I love about the work that all of us do together is the practical preparation is not lack of faith.
Mhm.
It's actually just wise stewardship. And it's very easy for someone, in the case of Marlene, or a doctor, for example. Like when you go to your doctor, of course, is exercise and eat better, right? Like I can go get my photos. You remember when you still have to get your photos signed by your doctor at the back for your passport?
Yeah.
Even if the appointment was for that, my doctor would still be exercise and eat better, right? Same with Marlene. Like, it's not a broken record when he says, get your house in order, get your house in order, right?
Mhm.
What I love about how how her service, it's not ministry, but really service, is that she keeps coming back and back and back and explaining why. This is what happens. Like she's not telling you write your will, power of attorney, and whatever other papers you need to get in order out of the goodness of her heart. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's a business, but you can also just advertise. It doesn't need to be community stewardship. How
Mhm.
do you find, Marlene, that you stepped away from just your advertising, sign on a bus, ambulance chasing kind of, what we normally relate to most lawyers, right? That are in private practice, not corporate lawyers. But what I remember when you and I first met and you reached out to me and you said, I want to collaborate with you because I want to lead a thought movement, right, for the empowerment of women. What has been the difference between doing it the traditional way or your way? Because it's not all easy.
Right. Well, look, if people don't understand why they need something, they're not going to seek it. And that's where it starts, right? We all need the education and we all need to understand it. And whether it's from your own personal experiences and hardships and griefs, or you're hearing other people's stories and warnings, if you don't understand why you need something, you're not going to get it until it's too late. And I don't, this is why I do it, right? We receive a lot of clients that are in the unfortunate category of not having prepared and having done the steps that are necessary, because some of the conversations are uncomfortable, some of the topics are things that they don't want to think about, but avoidance doesn't cure anything. It just delays the inevitable. And the inevitable is not pretty. It's not comfortable. It's even more uncomfortable and it's even more stressful, and it just exasperates so much. As Mindy said, like she's the pure example of what
Mhm.
happens in grief. And we get those clients in grief when we try to get them beforehand, but they also come to us when they're in grief and they have to deal with the pieces, of somebody have of the loss, right? Dealing with what's left behind and getting all of that sorted out with the CRA, with family members, whether they get along and whether they don't, right? So for me, I'm big on the education piece, because if you don't address the elephant in the room, first
Mhm.
of all, you have to recognize that there's an elephant in the room. So if nobody tells you that there's an elephant in the room, you're not going to look at it. And it's a back burner is a very comfortable spot for all of these things to sit. And it's easy to put it there because unless you know you're passing away tomorrow, there's tomorrow and the
Yeah.
next tomorrow and the next tomorrow. And we all gamble with that. But
There's an arrogance in keep thinking, next week, next day, next month, right?
I mean, it's natural, right? Because it's not imminent. If somebody told me that I was struck with a terminal illness, then that's more finite and more easy to see, right? But
Yeah.
thinking of your inevitable time when you're not going to be here and you don't know whether it's going to be tomorrow or 50 years from now, that's a big gap, right? So, and that's why the message is you don't know. You don't know. Why are you gambling? Why are you gambling with the people that you say that you love the most, right? Why are you gambling with the things that you say that you've built, you worked the hardest to build up? Well, let's protect it, right? Car insurance is by law a requirement, right? Estate
I
plan,
think I think state planning should be by law.
but
I
it will
really think so.
it should be, but it will never be because the government stands to gain a lot when people don't have this stuff in place, right? There's
Oh,
a lot more that they will gain in taxes and in
yeah.
and all of that stuff. With taxes is a big thing. It's a big source of income for the government, and I don't think they will ever enforce that as a law because there's a huge transition of wealth that's coming in the next decade or so.
Yes.
They say in the trillions, and the less people plan for it, the happier the government is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where Mindy and she uses the word evil and devil, and we've already had many conversations as to what she means, right? Is because a lot of the messaging that comes our way to delay, to all that, like, take the pill, right? Like, all of the messaging that is for profit, always remember who's profiting from this message,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
All of that is meant to disrupt your life, is
Mhm.
meant to make you fearful, is meant to make you doubt, is meant to paralyze you
Yes.
into not taking action.
Mhm.
And this is where faith and action are two sides of the same coin,
Mhm.
right? So, Mindy, you speak, and this goes to the two of you, the three of us for that matter. I am a big proponent, and my father used to say, it's better to turn red once than green 10 times. In other words, speak truth, right? And especially when leading others through difficult times, be it your family, clients, community, each other, right? Even yourself.
Mhm.
How important is it to balance the truth with hope and faith and still not sugarcoat it, like not lie to people? You
Yeah.
know, how do you do that, Mindy?
Well, there's a difference between lying and having faith. You know what I'm saying? Like so it's not that you're lying, but like having faith, and even in the Bible it says speak first, then you believe. So because our words are so powerful, we have to be careful of what we're speaking and what we're saying out into the world. But um it's very important that as we lead and as we're moving forward in these pieces that we kind of try to reconcile that. But I'll tell you this, here's the deal. And I'll give you another example. As everything happened with Jimmy, I had to take out my retirement so that I had money for us to live on. I put my business to the side, so I've just been starting it back up. I ran out of my retirement money, and May 1st I was like, I didn't have enough money in my bank account to pay my bills. But you know what I chose to do instead of freaking out? I just chose to pray and say, God, even though in the natural my eyeballs are seeing that my bank account doesn't have enough money to pay my bills, but I know that you've promised me that you're going to take care of me and that you will bring me the money, and I will trust and believe that you will bring me that money. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, I had more than enough money to pay my bills with a new client for not that month, but for the next month too. So it's not about lying. It's about believing what God says he's going to do. It's about trusting God. And that was where God needed to see if I trusted him enough, or was I going to go out and try to take more money out of my retirement?
Yeah.
How much was I going to trust him? And I did. And I've done that every month ever since. And I'm like, okay, God, can I at least get the money before the beginning of the month? That would be great.
Yes.
And I now have the money to pay for July before July shows up.
Yeah.
So when God says he's going to do something, believe him and trust him. So there is a difference. It's not that you're denying what you're seeing. It's just that just because I'm seeing my bank account is empty doesn't mean that God's not going to fill it up when I need it to be filled up.
It's not permanent. Yeah. And,
Permanent.
one of the things I admire a lot, well, about both of you, but Marlene, as we work, collaborate, is your discipline. Like, the reason you accomplish as much as you do is, she looks so warm and fuzzy, but she's a tough cookie. And discipline is one of the things that I admire the most. It's about doing things when you don't feel like it, but you do it because you have to. Tell us how do you reconcile that? The drive with the faith, with sometimes against the grain of reality.
That's a good question. So I have to say, I wasn't always like this, and it's always a work in progress, and it's a consistent choice. Um,
Ooh, okay.
I was a procrastinator for many reasons. I realized way later in life what that was really all about, and it's still, and there's tendencies that are there that I have to watch out for, especially when something is overwhelming or, I don't want to do it, as you said. There is, it's easy to procrastinate and to put it, you know, not do it, frankly, not get around to it and have all the legitimate excuses that you want to come up
Or
with.
freeze,
Hmm. Yeah.
or freeze, right? Even if it's not like, I'll do it tomorrow. Like, sometimes it's just like, oh my God,
Yes.
right?
Yes. And when you run your own business, honestly, sometimes those moments are daily where, something just
A ticker tape by the minute.
yeah, I won't tell you about this morning and yesterday. Like, and there's stuff that always comes up, right? And it's choosing to be problem focused or solution focused. And if you
Mm,
stay focused on the problem, you get stuck. And it's
mm,
about you and what you can and can't do and what's in your control,
yeah.
if you are focused on the solution, and I pray a lot, and I'm like, okay, this one's for you. I don't know what to do here. You need to send me some direction or send me the right person or instruct me, in which way should I go? And I constantly ask for wisdom, and it's not my wisdom. Um, I'm constantly seeking wisdom. And sometimes that means, he'll lead me to somebody who's going to give me the right advice or have that special conversation that I wasn't ready for, or sorry, who not wasn't ready for, but didn't know where to have it. Right. So,
Yeah.
when you're striving for growth, I find that doors open in ways that feed that. You will
Can
meet
you
the
repeat
next
that
when you're striving for growth, the
Mhm.
doors open that feed that supply
Right.
that.
Okay.
So when I'm looking to grow or expand or I have a question, sometimes it's a who that comes my way, sometimes it's a what. Sometimes it's a coach, sometimes it's a book, sometimes it's a conversation or something that's on YouTube or Instagram or, a conversation with somebody else who's already doing what I want to attain better than me.
Yeah.
And I find that people are more open and willing to share their knowledge and their expertise than you anticipate. You just have to ask, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's been all that and then some. As I said, just this morning, there's a roadblock that's come my way. I'm like, okay, this is what I need to fix. Help me figure out who to seek to get the
That's
answer to
right.
the
What
problem
does it
that I
mean?
have.
Right? Like, okay, what does that mean? And, from a science perspective, every time you solve a problem, your brain grows.
Correct.
Right? Especially a problem that's new, right? There's so many opportunities, and I know it's easy to sit in kind of, do the yoga pose in the yoga outfit, in, the perfect lotus pose, and find mindfulness. Where is the mindful? I'm an active practitioner of mindfulness, but is finding that serenity in the chaos, is the being able to self-regulate enough to calm yourself and to say, where's the message here? There's a humbleness
Mhm.
that comes with it, right? Especially as you're leading others. It's not a bravado, like, I'm a leader, I'm a thought leader, watch my followers. It's not about that. It's about the humbleness that you're sharing along and saying, listen, I was just speaking to a friend of mine that is also going through a similar process of trying to sell their home in a challenging market. And she says to me, like, how are you so strong? You're doing this alone. How? Because she's like, in tears, and like overwhelmed. And I said, darling, just because I'm calm right now doesn't mean that I'm not in the spot you're in at certain points, right? I think you have to know that it's temporary. I think you got to have that faith,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Worry only changes your attitude
Correct.
for the
Yeah.
worst. It changes nothing else except for your attitude. And it's for the worst, and it makes us not good. So
Yes.
going back to what you were talking about earlier, Marlene, you can't pray and be anxious. You cannot pray and be, what was the word? I can't remember, but I always talk about, like, you cannot be grateful and worry at the same
Yes.
time. They've done
Yeah.
MRIs where you cannot be grateful and worry at the same time. So when you worry, all it does is change your attitude, and it puts you in a dark space. It doesn't change anything else. So instead of worrying, start counting your blessings.
100%.
Another
Because
quote that I came across that has really shifted my perspective recently, and it's quite going around on LinkedIn, that says, remember, your very worst day can be someone's dream day.
Mm.
yeah,
And it's just that remembering, right? Like,
Mhm.
what is at stake here? Your children are okay, your parents are okay, you're okay. Even if even if you're dealing with illness and all that, right? Like, we still have it's not from a Pollyannish standpoint, but we still have to. It's a choice,
yeah. It's
right?
not Pollyanna, it's Father God in heaven. This is the space where you've put me. This is where you want me to be.
Yes.
What would you like for me to do with this space? How
And
would you like for me to serve you during this time? How can I make you happy? Because when we take the focus off ourselves, we're already 10 times better.
yeah, and you know what? This is absolutely the right reframe, right? And it's a constant reminder. You need to remind yourself again and again. And of course, we have in that reminder, we mentioned that, we have Mindy's absolute fabulous book, How Do I Speak God's Word, published by PWT Publishing. We have Marlene's, she has a fabulous self-assessment coming up in just a matter of days. Who speaks for you when you are not able to speak for yourself? How to choose the right executor for your will and state. And it's just in, like, literally, it's like baking at the last, the last few minutes. So you can expect to see it for sure by the end of the week, if not early next week, because there's so many holidays this week. And of course, with Powerful Women Today, 1 Million Woman Challenge, you can now go on our website and you can request your free copy of From Coping to Choosing, Party of One. So thank you, ladies. We come to faith from three different ways to practice because we all have different affiliations. But at the end of the day, faith is faith. In wanting to do good and wanting to be in service remains the same. So thank you. And we look forward to more of your wisdom on how to lead with faith. Thank you, Marlene. Thank you, Mindy.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Carolina.
Everyone.